Hello, folks. This is Bela. Our regular listeners and viewers will know that we've been doing an extended series of episodes that chronicle the trip that Mike Malakoff and I made in moving his boat from Brunswick, Georgia, to Burlington, Vermont. And this was took us almost 30 days to do that. And we made almost one episode every day. Actually made a total of 23 recordings that I have been slowly processing and editing and putting up and posting to our channel. And I've been doing about one a week. Well, 23 episodes doing one a week, that's like 23 weeks. It's like half a year. And in the meantime, there's been a couple of other interviews that we've done with some guests. And so what we decided to do was keep doing the Brunswick, Georgia to Burlington, Vermont trip, releasing those episodes one a week. But when I get a new episode with a new guest that I'm recording in the meantime, I'm going to interlace those or introduce them also on an alternate day, but sort of in between the Mike Malakoff episodes. So some weeks you're going to end up seeing two episodes come out. And hopefully once we get through all of the Brunswick, Georgia to Burlington, Vermont episodes, we will get then back to our regular format of episodes where Mike Wasserman and I interview people, we make some commentary, and that's sort of our regular format. But I was fortunate enough to go on this trip with Mike Malakoff, and I thought it'd be important to chronicle those into some pretty good episodes. So hope this is one of those interlaced episodes with a quote-unquote regular guest. Hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the Sailing and Cruising the East Coast of the United States podcast. I'm Bela Musits.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Hey, Mike, today's guest on the podcast is David Lage. He is a cruising powerboater, and he reached out to me recently and suggested having some cruising powerboat guests on the show. You know, we do many of the same things, whether we're on a sailboat or whether we're on a powerboat. We have many of the same challenges, and we interact with the weather the same way, the tides, the currents, all of those things. So I thought he had a good suggestion, and so I invited him to be on the podcast.
Bela, I love the idea of looking at some different perspectives, and of course, being inclusive, right? This is an important group of people that share the waters together, and I'll really be interested to hear about the similarities and differences between sailing and powerboating. So listeners, kind of keep your eye open, and after it's done, we'll, as we always do, kind of tie things up and try to analyze some of the similarities and differences between powerboats and sailboats.
Yeah, so let's dive right in with my discussion with David. Hello, David. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bela.
Hey, so nice to have you on the podcast. Now, this all started because you sent me an email and you said, hey, I've been listening to your podcast, and it talks about sailing and cruising, and, you know, both motorboaters and sailboaters go cruising, but you haven't had any motorboaters on to this point, and I'm a powerboater. So I said, great. How would you like to be on the podcast? And so I talked you into it, and here we are. And you have some great stories, I think, to tell. So give us a 3 or 4 sentence summary of your boating background.
My boating background started when I was a young teenager. My godfather was into boating. We grew up in the New Bedford area, which everybody would know is the whaling capital. The world, and is a strong fishing port, and he loved to go fishing. So we would go out on weekends out into the New Bedford area, Buzzards Bay, and that's where I started. And when I got older, my college years, that I went off and boating stopped. And it wasn't until I was in my probably early 50s that I said, you know, life's too short. And I bought a boat, kept it down in New Bedford because I'm from New Hampshire. And There was a Rinker 270, which was more of a day cruiser. We could go wherever we wanted for the day, but we're always returning home because the boat didn't have a generator. So 7 years later, I start thinking, well, we're thinking of doing the America's Great Loop. I says, need to start looking for another boat. And in 2021 is when I started that search, and I said, first off, I need to get a buyer's broker, somebody that could be looking for these boats, represent me as the buyer. And we hired Curtis Stokes and Associates. They were an LGLCA sponsor. He's located in Maryland, but covers all of the U.S. So we were pleased with the initial contact with Curtis Stokes. He represented me on quite a few boats that we had looked at, but we would deal mainly with brokers in the areas where the boats would be located. At that time, when I first met Curtis, we gave him a list of what we call wants and needs, along with a budget of what we were looking at. And because this turned out to be in the prime COVID stretch, boats were hard to come by and prices were soaring through the roof. So I know I've gone beyond my boating background, but just to get you
That's all right.
how I got
Good.
to where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned the Great Loop. For those listeners who don't know what that is, describe what that is. And you also mentioned the ALGCA, and describe what that is.
We're members of the America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. And what that is a trip that would take you to circumvent the east half of the United States. Like for us, we would be starting in New York. You proceed west up to the Great Lakes, and Canada. People go side trips, and once you're in the Great Lakes, you're coming south down through Mississippi, what they call the Ten Toms River. They're different routes, but you're coming south until you hit the Gulf of Mexico. And at that point, you can cross over to Florida, come around Florida, or cut through Florida. There is a cross path there on the Okeechobee. And then you head back north. And it's I understand it's about 6,000 miles.
Yeah.
And about a 1 year trip. And most people do the route counterclockwise because that will kind of flow with the seasons. Because if you start in New York in, let's say, May, you're up in the Great Lakes in June, they start getting cold early. So in October, you're south of Chicago and you're heading down.
Yeah.
And most people will winter in Florida. So
very nice. It's remarkable. I mean, I didn't know this until a while ago, but that there's actually a water route that you can, let you just described, go around the whole eastern half of the United States.
Yes. Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. So people who are listening to this podcast have already heard the previous episodes where I helped a friend of mine, Mike Malakoff, bring a boat from Georgia, Brunswick, Georgia, up to Burlington, Vermont. And one of the stops we made along the way is in Coinjock, which is on the ICW, the Intercoastal Waterway. And it's one of those towns that everybody stops at because there's like nothing for 30 miles before it and nothing for 30 miles after it. And we met two people there, two couples that were doing the Great Loop. They were loopers, as they say. And one of them was just sort of starting. They had started in Florida and they had made their way up to, I think CoinJock is in North Carolina, if my memory serves me right, maybe South Carolina, somewhere around there. And the other couple was just finishing their loop. They were actually CoinJock may be in Virginia, but anyway, because they started in Annapolis and they were on the final stretch, and they were going to be done in about a few more weeks. And yeah, they all talked about it takes about a year. They were both doing it full time. And I know there's other people who do it kind of on a part-time basis. They go for several months, then they leave their boat someplace and they go on with the rest of their lives and they come back and go for another several months. So is your plan to do it full time in a kind of continuous trip?
The plan was to do it in a continuous trip full time. We've been kind of hesitant now to do the loop only because we understand as you're coming down, say from Chicago, and you're heading down, the waterways have obstacles, let's call them, that can damage your boat. And I'm really hesitant to do a trip where you're more cautious avoiding obstacles as you are to enjoying where you're going. So that's given me some pause. What we really like to do is head back up to the Great Lakes. Just Lake Erie alone was, a nice place to be. And you can hit all of the, the St. Lawrence Seaway, the Thousand Islands. We hear everything is gorgeous there. And you can also head down, if you want to head down to Florida and the Bahamas and head down the Atlantic coast, kind of avoiding that western end.
Yeah. Well, there are just so many things on the East Coast, hence the name of the podcast.
Yes.
That there's just so much to do. And so much of the cruising is really easy because you can cruise for 4 hours and you can stop. You don't have to do an overnight. You don't have to do these marathon, 15-hour days to get from one stop to the next. You can if you want to.
Yeah.
But the towns and the villages and the marinas and the anchorages are close enough together that it's you can make it into a very easy trip. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned to me before we started recording that when you bought your boat, you hired a buyer's broker. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because I don't think most people think about hiring a buyer's broker and what that process was like, and maybe what's involved.
Sure. It was something that I had read about, heard about, that you should have a buyer's broker. And now that we've gone through the process, it is the way to go, in my opinion, because you have someone that, in our scenario, we're up in New Hampshire and we're seeing boats on the various boat sites, and we would contact our broker. Hey, what about this one? Well, it's down in Florida. Well, he's got a broker down in Florida. They can go look at it. We can video chat, see what it looks like. Yes, let's put an offer in on it. Versus if you don't have one, you're going to be doing a lot of traveling on your own. And sometimes once you get down and see what the boat is, it's a disheartening trip.
Yes.
So, and their experience with the buying and selling process, I never thought that, well, I'm going to hire a company and they're going to handle all of the closing scenarios similar to buying a home. Okay.
Yes.
So they handled all that. They handled the vessel that we bought. It's a Coast Guard documented vessel, which involves paperwork and forms. And they handled all of that. And again, the broker is helping you through this process. So, and the point with a buyer's broker is that there's no cost to me as the buyer, because they're going to share in the commission when you have the selling broker. In our case, though, when I found this boat, it was being sold directly by the owner. And so I told our broker, we'll pay you the commission, because there was
Yes.
no selling broker, nothing in that price. So,
Yes.
and it worked out well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it in many ways, it's exactly like buying a house, right? Oftentimes there's one real estate broker, in this case, boat broker, that you sort of work with, and that's your go-to person. And in this case, you hired a firm called, remind me of the name again?
Curtis Stokes and Associates.
Yeah, and they're a large boat broker firm that has locations in all over the United States, which again, to your point, makes it nice because you find a boat in Florida, you live in New Hampshire, they can go look at it, they can take pictures, and they can send you stuff.
Exactly.
As opposed to the selling broker doing all of that. And so that's great. And having a big firm like that gives you that ability that they have agents all around the country.
It does. And what we found in a few cases is the selling brokers don't really invest much time in the selling, that they probably never even see the boats that they're selling. They get the information from the owner, they pop it up onto a website, so they've never really seen it. In the case with Curtis Stokes, I know we saw a handful of boats up here in New England, and he would drive up here, meet with us, we'd go and see the boats. So, you know, his main area was in Maryland. So for him to come up to New England, he said, you know, that's only a short drive.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he would come up, and if it was something in Florida, usually there were different brokers. But at one point in time, we were feeling like, because my wife and I, we're checking those boat online, Yacht World, Boat Trader, et cetera, multiple times a day, just trying to find, hey, what's that listed? You know, because the market was so hot then that by the time we see a boat online, email it to Curtis Stokes and Associates, and he makes the call to the selling broker, it's already under contract.
Yeah.
And it was getting a little frustrating. And when we met with the last broker that we had explained to him that sometimes we felt that we're doing all the legwork, chasing things down. And he said, look, I only work with a select few clients at a time. He says, if you want, I'll work with you, and, you know, I'll be looking out for boats for you. And that worked very well. And we were glad to
Good.
make that work.
That's great. So you found the boat, you went and looked at it. Now take me through some of the other things that happened along that process.
On the boat that we finally got, we had made an offer sight unseen, and it's always pending inspections and a survey. And the owner accepted our offer, and we drove out to Buffalo, and our broker flew up from Florida to Buffalo. And this was first, take a look at it, just to make sure what we're looking at is what is shown in the photos, and it's what we want. And the reason why we did this was because on a previous boat, we had flown down to Florida. We had made arrangements for a survey. The surveyors were there, both the hull survey and the engine survey. And they told us this boat won't be leaving the dock. You know, there were so many problems with it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is not going to happen again, because I want to make sure it's seaworthy and ready to go. So
Sure.
we went to Buffalo. We met with the owner and the broker. The boat was on the hard at the time, and he was able to provide so much information. The service records for the boat. The boat had low engine. It was a 2004 Carver 460 Voyager, and it was less than 600 hours. He was the second owner. So when I asked for service records and they provide them, along with the receipts to show that, yes, the work was done. That was a big plus. That was like pulling teeth on some other vessels. So once we felt comfortable, we told them, yes, we're going to pursue this. I made arrangements to hire a engine surveyor and the hull surveyor. The engines, and the engines in this vessel are Volvo Pentas. So I wanted a company that was either Volvo Penta certified or had the experience with it. I wasn't able to find a Volvo Penta certified company up in that area, but the gentleman who we did hire had been the mechanic on that boat, and he had come highly recommended by 3 or 4 other places I had called when I was looking for an engine surveyor. So I said, okay, this is the guy. And we proceeded from there. We had the survey done in a matter of a day. The boat was hauled out. Everything was done. We ran everything. On the one issue that did come up on the way back, the broker had noticed that there was some sooting coming from the engine, and the marine surveyor picked it up. He was checking through his computer and whatnot, and come to find out, one of the air filters on the engine had collapsed. So the owner had paid for that all to get corrected. He got the problem corrected, and we purchased the boat in June of 24. And that was the end with dealing with the broker at that point.
Yeah. So I remember, buying our boat. We bought it. We closed on it just before the whole COVID thing hit.
Okay.
So I probably could have bought that boat and sold it, 9 months later for a lot more than I paid for it. I got lucky on that. And I remember after having the boat for, 3 or 4 months, there were several things that popped up. None of them major. One was sort of major that the surveyor had missed. Were there any of those things? I'm just curious. Did you discover any things?
I'm gonna try and make it a short story. One of the things, there were a couple of minor items. There was a drip from the exhaust elbow, and there was a seacock that they couldn't open or close. And the owner said, look, if you want to take care of those, I'll let you have my slip for another month, because he knew we were going to be back. I said, no problem. We'll take care of that. And I'm thinking, hose clamp, tighten it up and you're all set. Well, we started our journey, and I kept getting, and we're running slow. When you're going through canals and whatnot, you're only operating at, 5 to 8 knots. You're not going very fast, but I was getting a little bit of sooting, and I thought, well, that's because we're running so slow. We're not opening it up. And then I noticed that I've got water in my bilge under the starboard engine. And as you know, in the bilges under the engines, there are no pumps.
Right.
To contain oil if there was an oil leak. And so I stopped at a Winter Harbor Marina, which is on the Erie Canal. AGLCA sponsor, highly recommend it. So I went in and we stayed there. And I told him, look, I've got a problem. And I had water in my bilge, and I had water under the starboard engine. And the water in the bilge had to be from my gray water holding tank. The pump had failed, so it was overflowing. So they cleaned that up, put a new pump in, solved the problem. And we thought, well, somehow water must have gotten into the engine bilge. Well, we left and was still getting water in that engine bilge. What it came out to be was that little drip. As soon as you exceed idle speed above 5 knots, that is spraying out water. I thought, well, we need to get some new clamps. New clamps didn't solve the problem. So we're still doing this our whole trip, 5-8 knots, and trying to find somebody that could look at it. We weren't successful until we were on the Hudson. There was a marina we were going to stop at, White's Marina, and Stormy Bay Marine Services was there. He said, yep, get it in, we'll take care of it. And what it was, there's a rubber boot with these clamps that went to what I call a fiberglass exhaust pipe. And inside that pipe is another pipe. And that pipe had a crack in it. And that's why you can tighten those clamps as much as you want. The leak is actually from another source. And they made a custom stainless steel sleeve, put it in, clamps on, problem solved. But what I thought was a little drip, tighten the clamp, yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
It was not the problem. So
yeah. And you made it pretty far with that, doing it that way.
We did, yeah.
Now, did you mention that was at White's Marina in Poughkeepsie? On the Hudson River, right?
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So
yeah.
White's, maybe it's in maybe White's Marina is in New Hamburg, but it's around Poughkeepsie.
New Hamburg, that's where it is. Yeah.
That's where I bought my first boat from White's Marina.
Did you? Yeah.
Yes. So we used to live down that way, and I bought a Catalina 22 from White's Marina, and I kept it there for a couple seasons. Yeah. So that's quite a coincidence.
Challenging marina to get into.
Yes.
When we arrived there, they had told us how it was low tide and it was very challenging. He said, we'll take it in for you. Here's the keys. You take it, because I was new to this size vessel. And when he was telling me the challenges, I said, hey, if you want to bring it in and pack it in the marina, that's fine. So
yeah, that's very gracious of them to do that. I mean, a lot of places won't do that.
Right.
Right. They don't want that responsibility. Yeah.
And they, they identified the problem, got it solved, and
that's great.
Had us going. So
that's great. So was there anything else that sort of popped up that I'll say the surveyor missed?
No, I can't say that there's anything that's come up that the surveyor missed. We had one of our vacuum pumps on one. We have two heads on the boat, and one of them, the vacuum pump failed. But you're not going to pick that up. That's going to be a normal wear there. So overall, we were pleased with the house surveyor and the mechanical surveyor. So
good.
We were
good. Yeah, on my survey, one of the air condition, the surveyor turned. I have two air conditioning units. Turned on both air conditioning units, and they blew air, but he didn't. And it wasn't a hot day. I think it was in the fall. So he didn't wait long enough to see it. It actually cooled the air or not.
Oh, okay.
So, when I got the boat, on a warm day, I turned the air conditioner on, and it blows air, but it didn't work. And that was an expensive miss. All right. I mean, the air conditioning units, I think it was like $1,500 or something, because I have two of them, and this was the bigger one, of course.
Yeah.
That failed. So anyway, those things happen. Right. But all in all, I think the survey is a good thing to get, an important thing to get, and they're not cheap, right?
It's not cheap, but when you look at the investment you're making,
right,
it's well worth it. When you look at you're buying a home, and I would say at the time, you can buy a home, the same thing you're paying for a boat. You're going to hire a home inspector to come in and do the same thing.
Right.
So it's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And there's so many things on a boat, and I have limited experience, so I don't know. He was doing a bunch, because I just followed him around like a little kid. What are you doing here? And he was very nice. It was great, right? And he was very friendly and explained stuff to me. Here's what I'm doing here. So that in itself gave me a wealth of knowledge about my boat, because I sort of crawled through the boat as he did.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much. So my point is, if you can be there for the survey, I think it's really good, because you're going to learn so much about your boat.
Yes.
Which
You definitely should be there. But in my case, matter of fact, even my engine surveyor had said, look, I'm going to be down there the day before you even get there. He said that there's things that I want to do that while it's just sitting there. And I said, that's fine, as long as, you're there on the day of the survey and you're checking things out. That worked well. And what I was telling both of them all the time is, and I can't be with both of them at the same time, but
right.
Where they are, what they're doing. Okay, I want to be with this one instead. But hey, are you finding any issues? Because they're going to tell you, hey, there's something not right here.
Right.
And everything was going well. So we were pleased.
Well, that's great.
They turned the reports around within a day. So that was very good.
And sometimes the insurance companies want to see a survey too, right?
It wasn't a requirement, because that was one of the things on AGLCA's podcasts and whatnot is, before you make an offer on a boat, make sure you can get the insurance.
Yes.
And I'm like, I've got the same insurance company as my previous boat. I'd call them. I said, look, I'm looking at, and this had happened previously on boats that we had made offers on, what would the price be? And they never gave me any concern. So when we did finalize on this boat, and I told them I'm having it surveyed, and they said, well, when you're done, just send it to us. We'll have it on file. So it wasn't that they said we need you to have a survey, although maybe they would have followed up and said, oh, by the way, you need to have a survey.
Yeah. Well, good. I've heard that some insurance companies want to see the survey before they'll insure the company.
We were concerned that we had been hearing that the insurance companies wouldn't insure you if you were going greater than 10 feet in length on a boat.
Yes.
And that's where I was really concerned, because I was going from 30 to 47. But, I told them this is it. They gave me the pricing and never questioned it. So it was good.
Yeah, excellent. So you buy the boat in Buffalo.
Yes.
And you keep it in New Bedford. Is that still where it is?
It is there now. Yes.
Which is southern coast of Massachusetts on Buzzards Bay.
Yes.
And unlike buying a car, which most of the times you maybe drive 10 miles to the car dealer to buy the car and you drive it home, buying a boat, lots of times it's in a faraway place and you got to figure out how to get it. And I just interviewed somebody prior to this episode who bought a boat in Annapolis and moved it up to Boston. And he hired a captain because it was a sailboat. He didn't have a lot of experience out, in blue water. Mm-hmm. And so he hired a captain to accompany him. They went and moved the boat. So talk about your sort of experience of, okay, now we got to move this boat. How are we going to do it? Et cetera. My
biggest concern was, after we bought the boat, was, okay, I'm coming from a 30-foot boat with a single inboard outboard engine, no thrusters, to a 47-foot boat, twin engines, bow and stern thruster. I need training. And more importantly was, my wife had never operated a boat. And I said, if something were to happen to me, I'd like her to know how to operate, at least to get me to a dock or whatever. And so we hired a captain in Buffalo. And I was thinking this was going to be a 3 to 4 day training session. And he was really hesitant. And he said, well, we'll play it by ear. And he came and showed us the systems, trained us on operating it. And I think in less than 6 hours, he says, you're all set. And it worked out well because we were staying in Buffalo. We took the boat out on our own a few times. Docking is really the stressful part of it.
Yes. Yes.
And I find it so much easier than my smaller single engine boat. When you have the right equipment there, it's still very stressful, don't get me wrong, but the boat's more apt to do what you want it to do. And with ours, it also has the dockmate system, which allows you to remotely control the boat while you're docking. So a lot of times, you know, I can get the boat into the slip. It's easier for me to get off the boat to tie the lines. And while you're tying your lines, if the boat starts drifting, you know, you can move it wherever you want. So
Yeah.
that was very good. And my wife was the one that was more concerned. Wow, this is a long trip. But I said, it's not a long trip. Just think about it. We're going 30 or 40 miles. They're just short little day trips. And
Yes.
and then the concern was going through locks. We've watched videos, and I says, you know, it's a piece of cake. Don't worry about it. And it really was not that difficult. We had been advised by many people to go through the Welland Canal to hire a captain. And it's not that he's operating a vessel, but he knows the ins and outs of how to get through that canal, because the Welland Canal is really designed for commercial traffic. Matter of fact, for recreational craft, you're only allowed to go on certain days. You need to make a reservation. And while you are going through, the commercial traffic is going to take precedence. So you may be, hey, you need to tie up over here for an hour. We've got some freighters going through. And he's able to communicate with them directly, which was very good. And the captain we hired worked for them for 40 years. So he knew everybody there, and he got us through there perfectly.
So are there locks on the Welland Canal also?
Yes, there are 8 locks on the Welland Canal.
Okay. And those are big locks.
They are big. And normally you look and you say, oh, no problem. But when you are in the Welland Canal, when you were going north, you are dropping down. My illusion was, well, I'm going north. I got to be going up, but you're actually dropping down. And when you are at the bottom of that lock and you turn and look behind, and you see the gates are closed and you see a freighter sitting up there.
Yeah.
You know, I had asked him, I said, have these gates ever failed? And he said, only once. And it was like in 1929 or something.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting and educational. So.
And that's the canal system you started on, right? So that was your first.
That was the first. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we went through with 2 other recreational craft that didn't have a captain. So our captain kind of orchestrated all 3. And we actually didn't tie up to the wall. One of the other crafts, which was a 50-foot carver, he went to the wall and I rafted to him. And the other vessel went to the wall. So it worked out well.
Having just gone through the Champlain Canal, which is sort of like the Erie Canal, it's that same size, and they have 2 different systems for sort of tying up to the wall. When you do the Champlain Canal, I don't remember, for a while you're going up, and then for a while you're going down.
Yes,
and so some of the canals had ropes hanging down the sides that you hold on to, basically. And others had maybe about a 3-inch diameter pole down the side that you could loop a line around. And as the water went up or down, that line would slide up and down that pole. Now, we were in a 45-foot boat, and the whether they be the lines or whether they be these poles, they were too far apart for us to be able to grab 2 of them, right? So I was sort of at the bow of the boat, and Mike was at the stern of the boat where the wheel is. And if I grabbed a rope at the bow, he couldn't reach the boat, the rope at the stern. So it was like they just didn't quite space them right. And our boat was a pretty good sized boat.
Yeah.
And we really needed to hold on. It'd be really difficult to hold on just to one rope, because when they start filling the canal, particularly when they're filling it, it's pretty turbulent in there, and it can bounce you around. And actually, when we went through the first day, we went through with 5 other boats, and one of the boats lost a line, and they got turned sideways in the canal.
Yeah,
or in the lock, I should say, not in the canal, but in the lock. They were sideways. and it was a very tense, and you think they would have stopped filling it, to let people kind of regain control. Nope.
Nope.
They just keep filling it. Anyway, so what were the maybe the Welland Canal and then the Erie Canal? You can talk about that.
Well, it was the Welland to the Oswego to the Erie.
Yes.
And the Oswego and the Erie Canal had 2 types. One was the slimy line hanging down. And the other one is they have a cable that runs down, and you just loop your line around the cable, similar to a steel pole. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good because my wife would be on the bow and I'd maneuver the vessel. She would grab that line, and having the thrusters and the dock mate, I'd then just come down, and the spacing was convenient because I could hook another line and I would hold the stern.
Yeah.
So
one of the tricks we learned, or actually Mike knew this, about the slimy lines, is we had those rubber gloves you used for washing dishes.
Yes.
And they were great.
There were 2 things that we were told, the rubber gloves, and always have a knife on you. And I'm like, really, do you really need a knife? Well, we were in the Welland Canal, and I had told you how we had rafted up to the Carver, and there was a couple that was doing the loop that was behind us on a main ship, and we were dropping down, and they did get hung up that the line didn't slide down, and he cut the line.
Yeah.
And I said, and that's why you carry the knife.
Yeah.
And I would never have thought that something like that could have happened, but it did happen. So lesson learned, and you don't forget those.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So talk about sort of going through the canal system, sort of the facilities along the way. Where did you stop? How did you sort of do the planning, et cetera?
The planning I didn't do, like prior to us leaving. As we were going the day before, we would kind of make like a plan A and B. Okay. And, if weather turned up or something happened, we would adjust it accordingly. And people had asked, well, how long is this going to take you? And I said, whenever I get home, I get home. But I said, I'm going to figure 2 to 3 weeks. And with all said and done with the issues with the boat that we had, we did it in exactly 21 days. Had we not had issues that we went straight through, it would have been 15 days to go through. And we kept a log of everywhere we went and what it was like, because my point was this was going to be a trip to get the boat back, not so much a trip to go and explore everywhere we saw. So when we left Port Weller, which is the top of the Welland Canal, we went to Rochester, city of Rochester. They had just, not just, but they have a new marina that the city built there. It was a great facility. We stayed there a couple of days. Then we went to Sowdis Bay was going to be our next stop, and we were there in Fairport, and we would then be going down the Oswego, and we had a plan that we were going to stop halfway down the Oswego. And when we were going, we said, hey, we've got this issue. Let me go straight to Winter Harbor Marina. And that's what we did. And I have found throughout this route, up until you hit the Narragansett Bay, Buzzards Bay, most of the places to stop, especially on the canal does have areas with walls that you can tie up and stay there, and there's no cost for that.
Right. Right.
They don't have water and power in most cases, but where you pull into, we pulled into one of the towns we pulled into was Little Falls, and they had a public dock there, all, your water, your power, facilities, nice little town, short walk down to what were the historic mills that they had converted into shops and antiques. And the other side of town was the downtown area. So there's a lot to be seen. You could spend a week at every a few days at every location.
Yeah.
And in most cases, we just spent the afternoon the next day and we were moving along. But we did it probably in 15 different stops.
Yeah. Yeah. It is remarkable how many towns along these canals have at least a place you can tie up to for free.
Yeah.
And like you said, some have power, some have water. We ran across some on the ICW that even had showers and restrooms.
Yes.
And almost always an easy walk downtown to shops. And like you said, easy to spend a day or two there, real easy. And when you were kind of doing this, how many miles per day did you sort of have in your head that you wanted to do?
Less than 50. It was more of hours. We tried to stay 8 hours the max.
Yes.
Most of them were sick. The Welland Canal was 12 hours.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, we're tied up waiting during that time. So that worked. But I think the longest trip we made was when we went to Winter Harbor.
Okay.
And that was from Winter Harbor to Ilion Marina was 63 miles. I think we did that in it was under 8 hours.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
because
you can't go very fast on the canals.
Right.
Yeah. We would when we came up the Champlain Canal, we were on a sailboat. We had several trawlers and power boats, and we'd exit a lock, and they would speed up, and then we would just meet them at the next lock.
Yeah. Because they're not going to open a lock just for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And there was all sorts of staffing issues when we came up a month ago, where oftentimes the lock tender would work lock number 3, get all the boats through, and then they would hop in the car and they would drive to lock number 4. And then when all the boats got to lock 4, he would open that and get you through there. So,
question for you, Bela. Presumably they had to take your mask down?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where'd you do that? In Troy?
We did that in Catskill. So there's a marina called Hoppano's Marina, which is one of the places where many of the sailboats heading north stop to take their masts down. And that's where many of the boats heading south stop also to put the masts back up. So they have a crew there that when we were there, I think would do 3 or 4 masts a day.
Wow.
Easily. And they were quick. They knew what to do. It's about a 2-day job to take a mast. For us, there was 2 of us on the boat. It's like a day to get ready. Because and the ready part means you need to make some sawhorse like stands to hold the mast on your boat, because the mast is sitting horizontal on the boat, and it's longer than the boat, and there's no natural place for the mast to rest on a boat. So you had to make these kind of sawhorse stands. And so that took us a day to do that. And then the next day to sort of take the mast, you're waiting in line to get your mast pulled out. And then they basically pull it out for you and drop it down onto your sawhorses, and then you're on your own. So you got to secure all of the cabling and the wires, and make sure everything's secure. And that's another good day to get that done.
Yeah, there's more work for the owner than I realized. I was thinking that they were handling all of that, but I guess not.
there are some marinas that will do that.
Okay.
Pompanos is not one of them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there are some other marinas along the way that are more full service, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's I marvel at the people. There's a whole bunch of people on the Great Lakes and Lake Champlain that spend the summer on the lakes, and then they go south for the winter. So those sailboaters are doing this twice a year, every year. And my hat's off to them for doing it, because it was like, we did it once, and for me, once is enough. So anyway, I don't have any plans for moving my boat through those canals. And on the ICW, when we came up the ICW, the bridges there are 65 feet, plus or minus a few inches, and the mast on this boat was 62. So we were okay with that.
Good.
Anyway.
Good.
So if you had let's say you were talking to someone who's thinking of doing a similar trip to yours, what advice would you give them? What would the lessons learned from what you guys did?
Lessons learned. I gotta say, I can't think of anything that we came up to that we felt, oh, we're not prepared for this. Wow, this is not what I expected. It was pretty much, you're going out for the day. You're going from point A to point B, enjoy your views, the locks. At the time, the only thing I can say on some of the locks was when we forget the town we were in, but we had heard on the news that they had a little tornado that day, and we were going to be approaching that area in a couple of days. And you could see more debris in the water, more debris caught up at the locks, but that's beyond your control. You know it's there, just go slow.
Yeah. What time of year did you guys come through the locks again?
We came through in July.
Oh, okay.
We left Buffalo on July 12th and arrived in New Bedford on August 1st.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I where I currently live, I'm pretty close actually to the Champlain Canal, and the Erie Canal, about an hour away from it. So we get a lot of news about it. And oftentimes in the spring, particularly the Erie Canal has some challenges with high water and debris and things.
Yeah.
So I think, and even for us coming up the Champlain Canal, the canal system was supposed to open, I think it was May 16, and it didn't open until the end of May.
Wow.
And I think that was the Champlain Canal, and the Erie Canal, I think, didn't open until like the second week in June. So, because they had some serious flooding damage that they had to repair. So the time of year can also make a significant difference. And we encountered a lot of debris on the Champlain Canal, particularly at the locks, because right at every lock, on the uphill side of the lock, there's a dam. and the stuff kind of tends to collect right around the gates, the lock gates, both on the uphill side and the downhill side that we found. Yeah.
Like you said, I've been reading and hearing a lot about this year with the high water, and they had the late opening on the Erie Canal, and I think some areas may have still been closed, but they've been getting the cleanup crews to clear out some of the debris. So you're right. It's, you have no control over the weather.
Yeah. But like you said, it's for the most part, it's a pretty relaxing trip. Going through the locks can be a little challenging sometimes. It was interesting because the first day we went through the locks, there was a total of 6 boats going through, and the 6 boats filled up the lock. I mean, the locks are not that big, right?
Mhm.
So 6 pleasure boats filled, they were, I think the smallest boat was like 35 and the biggest was 50 something. So we filled up the lock, 3 on each side. The second and third day we went through by ourselves. We were the only boat.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was a lot less stressful. Right. Because, getting 6 boats, 3 on this side, 3 on that side. And once, after we went through the second lock together, we all sort of stayed in line, and we were always the third boat on the right-hand side. So we sort of got into this pattern because you have your lines all set up and all that kind of stuff. But you're worried about yourself, and you're worried about these other boats. When you go through the lock yourself, we're the only ones in here.
Yeah.
It was, we missed those ropes. Well, we'll get the next rope. Yeah.
I think we were in a similar condition. I can't ever remember going through a lock where it was full. Several we were alone, or you might have 1 or 2 others, but it was good. The interesting one was when we were coming down the Hudson River. I didn't want to go around Long Island Sound. I wanted to come through the Sound.
Through the East River. Yeah.
Yeah, we came up to Harlem to the East River, and I'm not a New York person, and I'm seeing, what are all these police boats over here? They're going to be pulling me over, whatever. And come to find out that was where Rikers prison was. And I said, now I can understand why they were there. But it was, again, you're saying, hey, I'm going through New York right now, and, you're on a river. So there was a lot of interesting things to see. And that's kind of where what we're looking at as powerboaters is, in cruising, is find where these interesting places to go are and what other people's experiences have been.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, having done this trip now, this is the 3rd time I've done a long trip from Florida up north, and on sailboats all the time. On this trip, all the way from Brunswick, Georgia to Burlington, Vermont, I forget the total number of hours that was. I have it written down someplace. We sailed for a grand total of 4 hours. Yes.
I don't think that was your plan, I hope.
No, it wasn't our plan. So I'm starting to appreciate, the notion of a trawler or a powerboat, because we would go, we could do 6 knots, but our average speed was probably 5.5 knots, between 5 and 6 knots. But you can go 10 knots, and that makes a huge difference. So I've gotten to appreciate and respect people who do these longer trips on power boats, for sure.
Yeah. But as you say, for us on the powerboat end, when I'm watching the sailboat, and I'm thinking, boy, they're out there flying right along, and they're not burning any fuel.
That's right. That's right. For 4 hours. For 4 hours, we did not burn any fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I've done it on other trips where we've sailed 70% of the time. So it just depends on the weather and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how long would it have taken you had you been able to stay out on the water?
Well, so that all that all depends. From Georgia, let's say direct to New York City, I think is like I'm trying to remember 800 miles or something. It's around that, I believe. Yeah. So even out on the water, if you're doing 5 miles an hour, you're doing it 24 hours a day, right? So the thing about sailing is when you're out 24 hours a day. So you can do maybe 120 miles a day. So it's going to take you 6 or 7 days.
It's the reason I asked is where we're slipped right now. A sailboat pulled in the other day, and I didn't realize, I'd never seen him there before, and that was his permanent slip. And somebody had asked him, "Well, where'd you come from?" We just came up from Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
68 hours. And I'm thinking, 68 hours? It would have taken me longer with a powerboat. But like you said, they were 24/7, and they must have had some good wins.
Yeah, when you it's amazing how fast, how much ground you cover when you're doing it 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because normally if you do 8 hours, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, 24 hours is 3 times that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you take your 40 miles a day and times 3, that's 120 miles right there. Right. And it adds up. But yeah, Norfolk is one of the places where we left from. We left from Norfolk, went up to Cape May, and we were going to pull into Cape May, but the weather was still good. So we kept motoring. and we actually had to pull into Atlantic City to get some fuel. And then from there, we went back out and kept motoring all the way up to Sandy Hook. So yeah, because we only carry about 50 gallons of fuel. So we can't motor for many days. Anyway, hey, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share with our listeners before we wrap this up?
I think some of the areas that, again, as I had shared with you in the email, why aren't we covering power boaters and cruising places? Because the info that I am interested in hearing about, and not being a sailor, I did get hooked on your podcast. I said, it's not power cruising, but they're talking about different experiences, which was very good. But points of interest that I would say, if somebody asked me, well, what are some places to stay at that you found interesting? Old Lyme in Connecticut. We stayed there a couple of days because it was a nice area. Again, slip costs, fuel costs were all reasonable compared to, once you hit a little further north. And
up where we are.
east.
Yeah, where you and I are. Yeah.
I don't know what happens, but another place was Coxsackie, New York. We were just amazed. We were coming down, and I'm always using Aquamaps and as my backup with Waterways Guide, and looking for recommendations. And there was the town has brand new aluminum docks there, again, that you can tie up for free. It's right at a park with a pavilion. They had a farmer's market going. We walked into town, quaint, attractive town, different shops. That evening they had music over at the pavilion. And I said, this is a town that knows how to attract people. But that was a good stop.
And that's on the Hudson River, right?
Coxsackie? Yes, it was. And I'm just kind of backing up. Most of the other places we were like in Little Falls was another spot that beautiful spot. In the city of Rochester. They had the nice facilities, and there are attractions nearby. So those were good stops. The other stops, not taking anything away from them, but those were the highlighted stops, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even Port Colborne, which was the beginning of, we went from Buffalo, you go to Port Colborne and you wait there overnight before transiting the Welland Canal. They had a free wall. Again, you're in a downtown area with everything you could want, restaurants, chocolate shops, different things. The only challenge there is their wall to tie up makes it very difficult to get in and out of your boat. It's because it's probably 3 feet higher than the gunnels on my boat. So
Yeah.
my wife stayed on the boat. I hopped off, and but
very nice.
Yeah.
Stopping at those little places, to me is one of the best parts. You know,
and the people you meet.
Yeah.
You know,
it was amazing how when we were coming up the ICW, various different places we'd stop, you would, whether we'd go out to eat, and you'd strike up a conversation at the people sitting at the table next to you. And I'm thinking to myself, I go out to eat here in my hometown. That never happens. It never happens.
Yeah.
Right. And here it is, oh, where are you guys from? Oh yeah. Well, because it's remarkable to me.
Yeah.
And these little towns that you can kind of, discover, or at least it feels like you're discovering them. I know we're not, we're like 10,000th person there that season, but it makes it really, really nice and a lot of fun. And I find that to be really enjoyable. To me, that's one of the highlights of this kind of cruising life. And the other highlight for me, at least, is 2:00 in the morning out on the ocean, and it's just nobody else around. It's just peaceful and quiet, and the full moon is out. It's spiritual that 2:00 in the morning when I'm on watch. So anyway, very good.
Good.
Anything else, David?
I think that would do it.
Super. Hey, thank you so much for being on a podcast. This is a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit.
Good. Same here. And I look forward to other power cruises chiming in on their dealings and suggestions.
Yeah, no, this was good. I people are listening that have power boats. Don't be bashful. Reach out to me, and I'm sure you have a good story. As people who follow the podcast have recognized, there's a lot of listeners who I've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
And
they all have interesting stories.
Exactly. So instead of trying to interview, the 30 or 40 well-known sailing personalities, I'm trying to get the average person like you and I who are cruising around. You do it on a power boat, I do it on a sailboat, but we're looking for the same stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
That was a great interview, Bela. And I have to admit that I've never heard of this great loop thing, but it sounds really interesting and really cool. Something maybe to put on the bucket list at some point post-retirement. But what were your key takeaways from your conversation with David?
I thought there was a lot of interesting topics that he and I talked about. Let's talk about the Great Loop for a second. So it turns out that you can circumnavigate the eastern half of the United States. As we talked about in the podcast, you can start anywhere, but if you start in the Great Lakes near Chicago, you could connect up to the Mississippi River, because there's actually a canal/river that they actually changed the direction of its flow so that you could navigate that, and you can get into the Mississippi River. From the Mississippi River, you can go all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. You can go around the Gulf of Mexico and all the way up the east coast of the United States, either through the intercoastal waterway or just offshore. And then you can get into the Hudson River, go north on the Hudson River up to Troy, and then head west in the Erie Canal until you hit the Great Lakes again. And that's called the Great Loop. And I think there's, I don't know specific numbers, but I think there's like several hundred people a year who do that. There's a Great Loop association, and they have a club. And if you complete the Great Loop, you get a little flag to fly on your boat and stuff. So it's a pretty cool thing. And there have been numerous times when I've been on these trips with folks, and in particular this last trip with Mike Malakoff, where we ran into Great Loopers who were doing that. Most of those folks do it in a power boat of some sort, but there are sailors who do it as well. And for much of the trip, you have to take your mast down because you're fundamentally a power boat, disguised as a sailboat. But it's sort of a big thing, and I'm sure it's a great way to see the United States. I mean, you're gonna see, from the northern parts all the way down to the south, the midsection of the United States, and back up the East Coast. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Could you do that in your boat? I mean, does the mast come down enough that you could make that all work and fit under the bridges and everything?
Yeah, you basically take the mast off the boat.
Completely. Okay. Because your mast is really big.
Yeah. So there are some people who, like when Mike Malakoff and I came up the Hudson River, once we got up to Troy, we had to take the mast down. And we basically made a stand for it. And instead of the mast being vertical, the mast laid horizontally on some wooden supports we made for it. And it hangs a little bit off the back of the boat and a little bit off the front of the boat because it's actually longer than the boat is. Many loopers who do this on a sailboat will take their mast down and have it then shipped to where they can put the mast back up, because having the mast laying on the deck of the boat is a real pain. It impedes your ability to move around, going through locks. It's just I could see how shipping the mast to not my final destination, or wherever I can put it back up. Once you hit the intercoastal waterway, you can put your mast back up. So it's the canals, it's the Erie Canal and the Mississippi River. And at some point on the Mississippi River, you can leave your mast up also because the bridge clearances are high enough.
Okay.
And I just don't know exactly where that is. So anyway,
interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. The other thing that we talked a little bit about is, buying a power boat. And here again, we've talked about this, whether you're buying a power boat or a sailboat, is get a good broker. Get somebody, it's like buying a house. Get somebody that you can work with and you enjoy working with. The other topic that came up here again that we've talked about is, okay, you bought a brand new boat. It's most likely not close to where you're going to keep it. So you got to figure out how to get it from where you bought it to where you're going to keep it. And David had a different take than we've heard in the past. So he hired a captain to sort of come train him in how to use the boat. A lot of other, we've heard about people hiring a captain to help move the boat. David didn't want to help him move it. He just wanted to say, hey, give me some lessons. Give me a couple days of lessons on how to run this boat and all that kind of stuff. So that's another great approach. And more importantly on many of those things, or one of the important things that people stress over is docking, and specifically bringing the boat into a dock. It's usually a little easier to leave the dock. It's coming back into the dock can be challenging. And each boat has its own characteristics on how to do that. I think another interesting tip that we've talked about often is don't have a schedule. If you're going cruising, throw the schedule away. You can have a plan, but a plan is sort of different than a schedule. And I think that's an interesting topic. And then getting through the locks, that has its challenges. If you listen to some of the other episodes with Mike Malakoff and I getting through the locks, we had some challenges and observed some other people having some serious challenges. You want to figure out how to do that and kind of observe and have a plan for how that's going to go. So yeah, I thought those were some of the big takeaways for me. Anything stick with you, Mike?
Yeah, no, nicely summarized, Bela. And I like this conversation, but maybe the best way to wrap this up is to kind of just go through point by point what we saw as the key similarities and differences between powerboating and sailboating that we can take away from your discussion with David.
Yeah, so lots of times, or we've heard some, there's a lot of friction between powerboaters and sailboaters, and I will say that I don't see very much of that at all. To take our marina where I keep the boat, and I see this in all marinas. Whether a sailboat's coming into dock or whether a power boat's coming into dock, other boaters will help you dock. They'll be there on the dock to catch your lines, to push you off if you need a little help or whatever. So there's a lot of cooperation, particularly in that environment. I every time I bring my boat in, there's usually, a fellow boater there to help me dock. And sometimes they're fellow sailboaters, sometimes they're fellow power boaters. We all are cordial. We all help each other. If someone needs to borrow a tool, nobody says, well, you want a sailboat or you want a power boat? None of that goes on. My observation is there's two potential areas of friction, and it's out on the water. One that I've observed is that some sailors like to exert their right of way. So in the rules of the road, in many occasions, or most occasions, a sailboat, if it's sailing, has the right of way over a power boat. And sometimes sailboaters like to exert that right of way more than they should. So that's just one observation. The other observation is that power boats can make a pretty good wake. A wake is sort of the waves that the boat makes as it's moving through the water. Sailboats make very little wake. Power boats can make a really big wake. And sometimes power boaters are going at the speed where they produce a maximum wake, and they're not conscious of the wake they're making. And they will often come closer to sailboats or other boats than the other boater feels is comfortable. And then you get what we call waked. And some of those, a big boat can make a pretty big wake, and which means your boat is going to rock back and forth, left to right or fore and aft or whatever. And so anyway, I think those are the two sort of friction areas that I've seen. But for the most part, man, get along really well.
Yeah, and we heard, I think the process of buying a boat, of finding a broker, of bringing that new boat home, these are all very, very similar. I mean, obviously what you're going to be looking at and checking for are different. Obviously the pricing structures are very different. Layouts of the boat itself are going to be different. But yeah, it just sounds like from your conversation with David that there's much more similarities than there are differences. And I think that's kind of a nice takeaway for today. And there's a lot to learn from each other. So yeah, maybe we'll have a few more power boaters on the show over the coming years, huh?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. The similarities far outweigh the differences and the areas of friction.
Great. So what do you think? Let's wrap this up, yeah?
Yep, time to wrap this one up, Mike.
Great. Listeners, thanks for joining us for yet another episode, and we hope you found our conversation with David interesting and thought-provoking. If you have questions about what we've discussed, as always, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our email is sailingtheeast, that's all one word, @gmail.com.
And finally, if you enjoyed the podcast, hit that like button on your podcasting app. It helps other people find us as we turn up higher in the search results. Our podcast is now also available on YouTube, so you can watch it there if you prefer. If you know of someone that would make a good guest for the show, let us know. That's it for today's episode. Hope to see you out on the water soon. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. Take care.
And from over here in Münster, Germany, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.